Hi, welcome back to Happy Apple Core Homestead. Today we are going to make and preserve cranberry juice. I have 6 quarts here in front of me. They've already been washed. You want to make sure to rinse your cranberries and pull out any that are moldy, rotten, super bruised, smashed, things like that. So you want really good, high quality fruit, especially when you're planning on preserving it. Do have my canner out over there. We will be doing water bath today. First thing you want to do is get your big stock pot out and put your cranberries in the pot, and however many cranberries you're using is how much water you're going to want to use. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. I have 6 quarts of cranberries, so I'll be using 6 quarts of water. Now that those are in, let's run on over and grab 6 quarts of water, and then we're going to head over to the stove for the next step. Now that the cranberries are on the stove, you want to turn your heat up to about medium. The goal is to boil these cranberries until they just burst open. Once they get there, I'll show you what it looks like. That's about what they look like once they've all popped. I'm gonna let this cool down just a little bit before we start the straining process. Now would be a great time to get your jars ready and get your rings and lids all washed up and ready to go. Our next step is to strain the juice through a jelly bag. Make sure that you get the jelly bag wet first, and I have a second little container here so that I can swap without making a mess. I mean, chances are I'm going to make a huge mess anyway, but we'll see. And then I have another vessel here to put the juice in. The cranberries, they can go onto the compost, or better yet, you can give them to your chickens if you have any. You might be able to make some kind of fun jelly or something out of the skins too. I'm not sure, or like a wine, I don't know. But try to do something useful with your skins if you can. Okay, let's start straining. Maybe I should move this closer. As you can see, this is going to take me a while because this pot is full all the way up to here and it can only drain so fast. I do have more stands and more jelly bags, so if I really wanted to, if I didn't have a lot of time, I could just set them all up, like line them in a row and just be straining through multiple bags. But, you know, I just have to decide, do I want to clean more things? Do I want to go faster? You know, hard decisions, you guys, first world problems. I'm gonna go ahead and get all of this juice strained because it might take a bit, and then I will be back with you to move on to the next step. I finally got it all strained. That did take a while, and I'm not gonna lie, I did get out my other jelly bags just to make it a little bit faster. This pot is filled to about right here. I wanted to just like inform you that it's not completely concentrated as it would be if we used a juice steamer, but it is still pretty concentrated. There's some water in it. I would just be aware that when you open your jar, it's very likely you're gonna need to add some water to it, especially if you're giving the juice to young ones, because it's gonna be super strong. Now, that said, at this point is where you would add the sugar. I'm not adding any sugar. I like to can with honey, as you know if you've watched any of my other videos. It's not so much that I'm opposed to sugar, it's just that it doesn't agree with me, so I tend to use honey instead as my sweetener. But the caveat to that is the health benefits of honey get destroyed when you heat them up. So I'm actually just going to sweeten my cranberry juice with honey as I drink it. So I'm not putting any sweetener in this. However, most people really do prefer it, and if you're doing quarts, you can add 1/4 to 1/2 cup of sugar at the bottom of each one of your quart jars, and that'll make it nice and sweet. And a little note on that, when you take it out of the canner, if you see some sugar granules still at the bottom, they will dissolve in over time. You know, like after they're totally cool, you can like give them a little shake if you want to, but they will dissolve over time. Some people think that they've made a mistake in their canning process when they see the sugar still resting on the bottom, and that's just not the case. Another interesting thing to note is this is not the only way to do cranberry juice. Some people put whole cranberries in, and that's beautiful as well. I'm not a big fan of the skins myself, so I use them for other things, and I like to take them out. And then some people just use the steam juicer, which, you know, of course, there's no skins in that. It just comes out as straight concentrated juice, and you have to add water to that for sure. This is kind of a happy medium between the two, I suppose. And if you guys want me to do a video on any of the other methods of canning cranberry juice, let me know. Okay, I've talked enough. So why don't we head on over, fill these jars, and get this canned up. It's water bath canning, so don't forget to put water in your canner. All right, I'll see you over there. Okay, I've got my funnel, my wet paper towel, my rings, and a ladle, as well as my bubble popper. Even though I'm not going to use it for bubble popping, I'm going to use the magnetic end on the other side to pick up my lids so I don't contaminate the jar. All right, a couple of quick words of advice. My juice over here is cooled off. It's not super duper hot right now, and my jars are room temperature, and my canner is not on, nor does it have any water in it yet. Your canning recipe may say that you need to boil it. Super important at least to heat it up if you're putting sugar in it, but it is okay to use your canner with cold jars, cold material, you know, food, juice, whatever, and a cold canner. The important thing is that you don't give your jars thermal shock. So if my jars are hot and I put cold juice in, I could crack my jars, or vice versa. So you can can either way. Everything needs to be hot, or everything needs to be cold or room temperature. That's the deal. Either which way, your canning temperatures and times do not change. All right, let's get this jar filled. To reduce mess, I'm going to use my funnel. I mean, obviously, I'm still making a mess. Okay, and for cranberry juice, you need 1/4 inch headspace. So I'm going to pull this up as I check it. And 1/4 inch, you may not be able to see this, and there's some really good graphics online that you can find, but this bottom line here, right where the bottom of the rim is, right underneath, that is 1 inch. And then if you turn your jar to where you can see the middle glass line where the rings go, that's a 1/2 inch, and then one up above that is 1/4 inch. I'm a little below that, but I think that's okay because I've got some bubbles going on there. I mean, I guess I could put my bubble popper in, but honestly, it's not going to make really any kind of difference. As you can see, like they're there. I should pour a little slower. Okay. Now we're going to clean the rim, especially if you didn't use your funnel. You want to clean your rim, and as you can see, even though it didn't look like there was anything, yep, there was. And if you leave anything on the rim, there is a possibility that your jar won't seal. Okay, I just grabbed my lid with my little magnet, put my lid on, grab the ring, put the ring on, and this jar goes straight into the canner. There isn't any water in the canner yet, but there will be soon. I'm gonna fill the rest of these jars. I'll let you know how many I got because I'm not even sure. And then we'll put the water in the canner and get it to the next step. I thought I was going to get 6 quarts, but I got 5 and I didn't have any left over, so I'm pretty happy about that. So just in case you were wondering, the recipe that I made today makes 5 quarts. All right, let's get this filled up with water. It's very important that in a water bath, you have water that is 1 to 2 inches above the top of your jars. With pressure canning, it's not like that, but with water bath, very, very important. We're gonna fill up this canner all the way up to about here. Okay, here is the water. If I stick my finger in here, since it's not super hot yet, you can kind of see how much water is in there. That's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches at the most. That's perfect level for this. And I recommend that you put your heat on a medium. If everything is cold, you can put it up a little higher if you did a hot canner, hot jars, hot food. But for me, I'm gonna let this heat up slowly, so it is gonna take a little bit of time. As you can see, I'm using my pressure canner, even though we're using a water bath, and that's perfectly fine. You can use a stock pot, you can use anything you want. Make sure your rack is in the bottom, whether you're using your pressure canner rack that comes with it is perfectly fine for this. Also, I'm gonna put my pressure canner lid on to keep that heat in there. You don't have to tighten it up or anything, that's completely up to you. You can put it askew if you want. I'm actually gonna take my little nub out in the back and I am going to seat it on here properly, but that's just me. But you do you. Having a cover on just keeps the heat inside and makes your pot heat up faster. All right, when it gets to a boil, I will show you the boil because it has to be a full rolling boil before you start your timer. No timer can be started at this point. The colder your canner, the longer it's going to take to heat up, but don't worry, that's part of the cooking process if you do your canning in this way. If everything's hot, you can turn it up faster and it'll heat up faster. So just kind of up to you and what works for you in your kitchen. Okay friends, that's what a full rolling boil looks like. I'm gonna put the lid back on and we're gonna set the timer for 15 minutes. The timer has gone off, so we're gonna take the pot off the burner and remove the lid. Be careful, lots of steam. And then we're gonna set the timer for 5 minutes and then we'll come out and remove the jars. 5 minutes have passed and we're gonna take the jars out of the canner. I do recommend, especially if you have a cold countertop like I do, put a blanket, towel, like whatever. Put something down to prevent thermal shock. And there we go. We've got our 5 beautiful jars. You can hear them pinging in the background. We're gonna let those sit until tomorrow morning, at least 12 hours, but 24 would be fine. And then I will give you the next step and a couple of hints and tricks. These jars are all cooled off now, and we just have a couple of quick steps left before they're ready for the cabinet or for you to make wine or jelly or drink it or whatever it is you like to do with your cranberry juice. So the first thing you're gonna do is take your rings off. Then you want to make sure that your jars are sealed. You can do that in a number of ways. You can press down on the top and listen to see if they pop up. Some people like to tap them. There's a pretty distinct sound on the lid when you tap it if it's not sealed, but I want to caution you against only using that method because, for example, if you're making an applesauce, sometimes that applesauce sticks to the lid and it will sound like it's not sealed even though it really is. So what I like to do is I like to do the push method just to make sure that there's no little like a boop sound. And if there isn't, then I just pick the jar up carefully from the lid and just make sure that it stays put. Okay, these are great. So now we want to clean around the outside of the lid. That's just to make double sure that nothing siphoned out. And with the juice, you're not really going to have that much of a problem. More for thicker type items, I don't know, like a soup or my potatoes, they always siphon. I don't know why. Should probably leave them in the canner a little bit longer. Anywho, all right, these are ready to have labels. I like to use dissolvable labels because once I use a jar, it's super easy. They just come right off in the wash. Put what's on it and the date so you know. And that's it. It is ready for the cabinet. Okay, I just want to recap a couple of things really quick. I talked about not using sugar. You can sweeten it after if you want to, but it's perfectly fine for you not to use sugar if you don't want to. Also, you can can it with honey. Most of my canning I do with honey, but it does kind of kill the health properties of the honey when you can it or when you heat it up for long periods of time. So when I drink this, I'm just going to add the honey at the moment, like as I'm drinking it. But if you want it sweet right out of the container, go ahead and add sugar or honey to it before you can it. These jars there's not a lot of sediment or anything in them. They're really clear already as is, but you can, after you have strained the juice the first time, you can leave it in the refrigerator overnight for 24 hours or so and then strain it off again, making sure to leave the sediment in the bottom of the pan. That'll make it even more clear, but I'm really happy with the way this looks and I'm kind of glad I didn't do a second straining. And just as a reminder, it is a little concentrated, not as concentrated as if you would use a juice steamer, but it will still be quite strong. And I don't want you to be disappointed when you open your cranberry juice. Don't be afraid to add a little bit of water, especially if you are giving the juice to young ones. And that's it for today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!